11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, a message arrived at Cheating Story Lab. Discussion about the joint account is necessary, non-negotiable for tomorrow. As I sat in the quiet of our bedroom, listening to Gwen's rhythmic breathing next to me, she'd sent this 3 hours earlier while I was showering, apparently. The tone wasn't typical, not playful, demanding, or even frustrated from our occasional disputes. It was businesslike, sterile. After 7 years of marriage with Gwen, I recognized her routines and mannerisms. The way her voice changed when she fibbed about consuming the last ice cream versus something significant. This message bore the same energy as the time she'd pressured us to discuss my mother's health, to manipulate me into excluding Mom from Thanksgiving. Tomorrow promised an ambush. I stepped into our kitchen to find Gwen already dressed in what I called her serious wife attire. In her navy blazer worn at parent-teacher conferences and HOA meetings, paired with courtroom heels from her brief stint as a paralegal, she sat behind a table laden with her laptop, a notepad filled with bullet points and 2 coffee cups, one for herself, the other a businesslike arrangement. "Take a seat," she said without looking up. I did. She started off, "I've been contemplating our financial structure." 7 years married, yet still functioning like roommates with separate accounts. "It's not conducive to a partnership." She slid a neatly printed budget plan across the table, color-coded and brimming with projected savings goals. "I propose we consolidate," she explained. "A single joint checking account where all income flows in and expenses are drawn out, ensuring full transparency, as if we were an actual married couple." After examining the document, its content seemed sensible on paper. We both held separate professional roles. I ran a mid-sized contracting company while she managed a dental office. Our financials had always been distinct, stemming from our early days as a couple living together in a shared apartment. However, we were no longer young adults. We owned a house and had retirement accounts. Her proposition, though logically sound with the exception of its timing, left me puzzled. "From where does this idea originate?" I questioned. She let out a frustrated sigh, implying I was being unreasonable. "I've been reading up on financial intimacy," she said. "Couples who combine accounts report higher marital happiness. It fosters trust. We have trust already, so you should not object to this." Her argument presented a dilemma. Resistance indicated mistrust. Agreement suggested compliance. I recognized the tactic. Gwen had been employing similar strategies since our 2nd year together, when she'd persuaded me her sister needed to stay with us for 2 weeks that stretched into 4 months. I gazed at her over the table, taking in her blazer, her list of points, and her well-crafted argument before making a decision that would alter our circumstances significantly. "All right," I responded. "Let's proceed with it." Her eyes briefly widened, anticipating opposition. "Seriously, yes, you're correct. Full transparency is essential." I reached for my phone. "I will establish the shared account today. Which bank do you prefer?" We opted for her long-standing First Heritage Bank account. I shifted my direct deposits to Root. I transferred $8,000 from my business account as an initial deposit. I designated her as a co-owner with full access. I even arranged for checks bearing both our names. Gwen showed enthusiasm. That weekend, she proudly moved her paycheck into our account. She updated her budgeting app. She shared screenshots of setting up automatic payments for our utilities and mortgage. Unbeknownst to her, 20 minutes following our departure from First Heritage on that first day, I had stepped into Commerce Bank 3 blocks away and established a second business account under my LLC. I diverted my true contracting earnings there. The funds entering our shared account were controlled transfers, sufficient to cover our shared expenses plus an amount that resembled fluctuating salary, giving the impression of normalcy. Our joint account transformed into a stage, and I became the observer. For the first week, everything appeared ordinary. Gwen paid for groceries, her car installments, her student loan payments, all typical expenditures from a supportive spouse. The second week brought a $600 charge at Nordstrom. When I inquired about it, she mentioned needing new work attire, a plausible explanation. The third week showed a $320 charge at an unrecognized restaurant. "A client dinner," she explained, even though her office didn't have clients. Week 5 revealed a $1,200 cash withdrawal with no provided explanation. I didn't inquire about that particular matter. I merely observed. Inquiring would have exposed my vigilance, which could have been manipulated by Gwen as proof of mistrust. Over the 7 years we've been together, I've learned that Gwen excels at feigning victimhood when confronted. If I were to question her now, she might accuse me of monitoring her spending and turn my observation into evidence of lack of trust. Instead, I deposited funds. I feigned delight when she displayed her budget reports. I pretended understanding when she discussed our financial aspirations. Stealthily, I transferred around $4,000 per week to my genuine account at Commerce Bank. The bills became intriguing in month 3. A sum of $2,400 was allocated to Skyline Property Management. Upon investigation, I found a high-end apartment complex on the city's north side that offers amenities like rooftop pools and rent starting at $2,800 monthly. I also discovered an expense of $890 going to Precision Athletics, a premium personal training facility. Gwen never indicated her intention to join a gym. A $1,650 charge appeared on Coastal Escapes Travel. No travel plans had been mentioned. I took snapshots of all transactions and logged them in my personal spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and vendor names. I wasn't sure what I was creating at the time, but I knew I was constructing something. In month 5, Gwen started working late hours. She'd text about inventory issues and ask me not to wait up. When she returned home at 11 p.m., she smelled of wine and wore a smile that didn't match her dental office duties. Month 6 saw me hiring a forensic accountant named Leonard Hirsch, who fit the stereotype perfectly with his wireframe glasses, bow tie, and enthusiasm for spreadsheet equations. I met him at a coffee shop distant from our neighborhood and provided him with 6 months of statements from our joint bank account. He inquired about my objective. "I'm searching for patterns I might be missing," I replied. "I believe my wife is concealing something." Hirsch conveyed to me 4 days later, "Mr. Brennan, does your wife have any personal businesses you're aware of?" I replied, "No, she's an office manager and W-2 employee." He then disclosed this information. He sent me a document, a business registration for an LLC named GTC Holdings Limited, filed 8 months ago. Gwen's name appears as the managing member on the paperwork. I inquired, "What is GTC?" Hirsch replied, "That's what I wanted you to inform me about." However, let me share some findings instead. I discovered 11 instances where cash withdrawals from our joint account were deposited into GTC's business account within 48 hours. The amounts were slightly altered. $1,200 changed to $1,150, and $980 changed to $945 to avoid detection of a pattern. It appears that she is transferring our joint funds into a business account, not laundering them, technically legal if it's her money. But you stated this is an account we both fund equally. In fact, I have been contributing more than 60% of the deposits. Hirsch remained silent for a moment. If she's transforming shared matrimonial assets into individual property, she may argue that the GTC, Grants and Trusts Corporation, existed before marriage or was solely funded by her earnings. To challenge this claim, you'd require supporting documentation, which can be obtained only through a subpoena. However, if divorce is imminent, your lawyer could request these records during the discovery process. Yet, I wasn't ready for legal representation at that time. I felt it was essential to understand the situation first. In the 8th month, I decided to tail her, feeling like a stereotype, following her car discreetly wearing a cap. My intention was to find out where she went thrice a week when she claimed to be working late until midnight. She headed to Skyline Apartments, specifically Building C on the 3rd floor. I parked nearby and observed as she used a key fob to access Unit 3C, noticing lights inside turn on. Observed her shadow pass through the windows as she discarded her shoes, extracted an item from the refrigerator, positioned herself on a previously unseen couch. 20 minutes later, a silver Audi parked in the lot. A man approximately 35 years old with an athletic physique and a gym bag slung over his shoulder exited. He glanced at Unit 3C, smiled, and unlocked it using a key. I required no further observation to understand that Precision Athletics was no ordinary fitness center. Returning home, I mixed myself a bourbon, seated in my study, and perused the documents that Hirsch had provided. GTC Holdings, Skyline Property Management, Precision Athletics, Coastal Escapes Travel. I began connecting the dots. The apartment belonged to GTC, a corporate rental to keep Gwen's personal name off the lease. The gym membership allowed access for her and an authorized companion. The travel bookings were scheduled for 2 individuals, coded as business trips. She constructed a separate life using our shared funds, meticulously organized to appear as business expenses for an LLC I wasn't aware of, except it didn't exist. Now I have evidence. After 10 months, I consulted attorney Patricia Voss, known for handling complex high-asset divorces. I presented her with bank statements, Hirsch's analysis, apartment building photos, GTC business records, and credit card statements detailing travel bookings. Voss reviewed the materials, spreading them across her desk, and commented they were strong evidence. However, she emphasized that they only suggested an affair. Direct proof like messages, photographs, or admissions were still missing. I don't have those yet. So here's the plan. Continue funding our joint account, act unaware as her husband, allow her to feel secure, and wait for her to make a mistake. How long? Until she initiates the filing or commits an act so severe we can prove as fraudulent rather than unfaithful. I waited for 12 months. Gwen committed her error by forging my signature on a loan application, which I found out when Commerce Bank contacted me to confirm my employment for a $35,000 personal loan request. I had not submitted such a request. They emailed me the application, including my name and social security number. The forged signature was close but incorrect on the downstroke of the B in Brennan, the purpose listed as home renovation, with disbursement instructions for direct deposit to GTC Holdings. I contacted Voss immediately, stating that we would be filing and requesting an emergency motion to freeze all accounts pending a forensic audit. This is no longer infidelity. It's identity theft and wire fraud. The divorce papers were served at Gwen's office on a Thursday afternoon. She didn't inform me directly, but Mallory shared later that Gwen turned pale as a ghost upon reading something and locked herself in the bathroom for nearly 45 minutes. That evening, she arrived home with an altered demeanor, not anger but fear. In the kitchen where I was preparing dinner, she stood casually as if nothing had transpired. "We can resolve this," she said. "I acknowledge my errors, especially regarding GTC, but we don't require lawyers. We can negotiate." However, her refusal followed swiftly. "Damian, please, you falsified loan documents using my identity. That's not a matter of poor communication, it's fraud. I was about to disclose this, but the loan wasn't merely for our house. The loan was for an LLC you established without my knowledge, which funded an apartment I've never seen where you reside part-time with a man I've never met. Don't belittle me." Her expression turned sorrowful. 12 months' worth of tears, once used for apologies and reconsiderations, were now futile. They no longer worked. She whispered, "I'll return everything, the apartment, the account, all of it. Just avoid court." Her silence regarding this request was telling. It was then I realized there was more to uncover. Discovery during a divorce can be enlightening. With a judge's mandate, one can summon financial records from banks, businesses, employers, even places where money has been transferred. At Voss's request, 5 years of records were obtained from every account, credit card, and business affiliated with Gwen. What emerged was far beyond the scope of an affair. GTC Holdings received $127,000 over a span of 18 months. Money wasn't only transferred from our shared account. There were Venmo transactions labeled as gifts, 3 wire transfers from an account belonging to Troy Whitmore, the personal trainer, and these funds weren't supporting Gwen's lifestyle out of affection, but rather investment. Records from GTC Bank revealed outgoing payments to a company named Prestige Development, LLC, a name unfamiliar to both me and Voss. However, when Hirsch traced the ownership trail, an astonishing fact emerged. Prestige Development was owned by Gwen's sister, Renee. The puzzle pieces fell into place as it became clear that Gwen channeled money into GTC, which in turn paid Renee's company for non-existent consulting services. Renee returned 30% of this income to Gwen in cash, while keeping the remaining 70%. She reported this 70% as legitimate business income and paid taxes on it, giving the scheme a clean appearance. They were employing my funds to generate taxable income for Renee and amass a secret savings for Gwen through a business entity I was unaware of, while Troy, more than just Gwen's partner, served as their enforcer, injecting money into the mix to create a diverse financial profile that wouldn't raise suspicion. Voss condensed it into one statement. "Your wife conspired with her sister and boyfriend to defraud you. We're not merely seeking divorce, we're making criminal referrals." The trial spanned 3 days. Gwen's lawyer attempted a tactic appealing to empathy, asserting that she was pursuing commercial ventures, and the LLC served as a precautionary measure in case their marriage dissolved. The loan application signature was an unintentional error during a period of stress. However, Voss countered this by presenting time-stamped evidence. The bank records were shown to the jury, demonstrating deposits into the joint account and withdrawals made by Gwen, as well as transfers to GTC. Additionally, the lease for the apartment was provided. It had been signed 2 months after Gwen had requested the shared account. In court, Voss presented messages between Gwen and Troy, obtained during discovery, including one where they agreed on a joint account for 3 months to accumulate funds for a down payment. The courtroom fell silent as Voss played a recording from 4 months prior, a voice memo of a conversation between Gwen and the lawyer about a $1,800 charge at a furniture store, explained as an office upgrade. The conversation was clear on the courtroom speakers, with Gwen stating it was for the business Damian GTC she had mentioned previously. Voss questioned Gwen about when she told her husband about GTC holdings, to which Gwen's attorney objected but the judge overruled. When asked about the date, Gwen replied she couldn't remember exactly, and Voss presented the business registration dated March 14th, 4 months before the recording. She asked for any evidence of disclosure of this business to her husband prior to the recording, but there was no response. Gwen's lawyer called for a recess, which the judge denied. Voss then called Hirsch to the stand and walked him through the financial trail, showing every deposit, transfer, and forged document. She demonstrated how the loan application had been submitted from Gwen's IP address and presented evidence of coastal escapes bookings and 2 tickets to Cancun, with names listed as Gwen Brennan and Troy Whitmore. Voss then called Troy, who had taken an immunity deal 2 weeks earlier, and confirmed everything on the stand: the affair, the apartment, the investment scheme, Renee's involvement, and the joint account. When asked whose idea it was, Troy responded it was Gwen's, saying it would be easier to access Damian's income if it was all in one place, referring to it as playing the long game. The judge, Evelyn Caldwell, questioned Troy about his knowledge of participating in fraud, to which he admitted. The judge then turned to Gwen, asking if she understood her actions were fraudulent, to which she also admitted. "Rise, Brennan," Gwen quivered. "You didn't merely deceive your spouse. You masterminded a scheme to defraud him using falsified documents and a fictitious business entity. You enlisted your sister and your lover in this plan, and upon discovery, you attempted to erase evidence and force your husband into mediation to prevent exposure." She cast a glance at the prosecution table. "I am granting the divorce with complete asset division to Mr. Brennan favored me, leading to my reference of this case for charges of wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and Gwen was arrested 6 days later, followed within a week by Renee. Troy's immunity didn't save his reputation as Precision Athletics fired him, with last news indicating he trained clients from a garage gym in a rundown neighborhood. The $127,000 in GTC holdings were seized and returned to me as restitution. The apartment lease was terminated. The leased Audi under GTC's name, procured through fraudulent loans, was repossessed. Our house sold within 43 days, with proceeds split between me and Gwen according to court order. Despite her incarceration, her share went towards attorney fees. Gwen pleaded guilty to avoid trial, receiving 18 months in federal prison, 3 years supervised release, and a $50,000 fine she may never pay. Renee received a 12-month disbarment from holding any business license in the state. I retained all screenshots, every transaction, text, and lie labeled transparency, as Gwen had desired financial intimacy and trust. She got it, but not as planned. I rebuilt quietly, expanding my contracting business, moving to a smaller house 20 minutes south, seeking therapy to cope with the realization of years of being treated like an ATM with emotions. People ask if I'm angry, but I'm not. I feel something colder and more lasting: vindication. Gwen taught me patience isn't weakness, that documentation is stronger than confrontation, and sometimes the best revenge isn't explosive but methodical. She wanted a joint account, and I gave her one, just not the one she expected. Watching her scheme crumble in court under her own evidence, I remained silent, having watched for 18 months prior. That concludes today's tale. If you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe to Cheating Story Lab, where we'll see you next time.